Hi everyone, my name is Rick. I want to show you how to connect your Micsig tablet scope to your phone or PC, and that also works with the iOS or Apple and Mac computers. Please note when you're watching this video, at the first of the video I go over some brochures and some stuff on the Micsig's website. If you don't want to see the brochures, just skip ahead to the part where we're actually looking at the oscilloscope. And this is just a warning about working around electric, especially high voltage electric. Always make sure you know what part of your circuits is your low voltage and your high voltage. And be extremely careful because the high voltage could really hurt you. Also, when you're working around capacitors on electric circuit, make sure and discharge those capacitors if you're going to be testing them or taking them in or out of a circuit. Here we have a picture of a Sato 1004, which just means the automotive edition. You can see you got some preset automotive tests on here. And then the other scope is the STO 1004, which is kind of the same scope, it just doesn't have the automotive presets in it. All these Micsig tablet scopes are going to hook up the same way. So if you on the newer ones anyways, so if you don't have the same model, yours probably will hook up the same way and you could probably follow through this. And I will give you some hints that if you do ever have them freeze up on you or get some delay in your signal, how you can possibly fix that, what I've been doing for a workaround. So the first thing I wanted to do was just scroll through the PDF brochures and specs on these two scopes. First one I'll scroll through here is going to be the Smart Series. And you can just pause your video if you need to look at something. And like I said, this is the STO 1004, STO 1002, which is not the automotive version, so it's not going to have the presets in there. And just always remember too that these are touchscreen scopes, so you can pinch and zoom on your signal on these scopes, which is kind of nice. You can't do that on the computer, but you can move everything around with the mouse. The reason I like to use the computer part of it on this computer screen is because when I'm teaching, it's easier to show people than it is to try to film a glassy scope. Now, while we're on this picture right here, this is a picture of the side of both scopes. And there is a power off lock switch here. And that power off lock switch is to keep it from coming on when it's in your bag or something, so you don't get to your job and the actual scope is dead because the battery, or it actually got turned on by accident. So if you put that in the off position, you have to turn that back on before you're able to operate the scope again with the on and off, regular on and off switch. Now, one reason I'm kind of mentioning that right now too is because if you do have a lag or it starts freezing on your computer, you can see your scope is showing something different than your computer is showing on the screen. I've often had to turn that on and off, so kind of like a hard start to get everything back in sequence again. But there's also another way I'm going to show you how to, if you're getting some kind of lag or delay on your system. I'm going to continue to scroll through this brochure. That's one thing, the color temperature on here. It's kind of an interesting setting. And I might have already mentioned this before also, but if you are a manufacturer of oscilloscopes or other electronics products, you can get a hold of me at info@iwatchilearn.com. And I'd be happy to put your products out there so people can buy them. This just shows you where it's on your PC screen, it's on your phone. This is a screencast to an actual screen. Okay, so let's go do the other one. No, this one is the automotive version, the SATO. You can see right here on the screen they got some of the presets for your automotive tests there. Okay, so then let's go ahead and go to the Micsig.com, and I'll show you how to download both the PC software and the phone software. So you can go up here. Let's make sure we're at the site you would land at here. And let's see something here. When we click up on support and services, if we scroll or go over to the left and click on the automotive scopes, when we do that, here's where you could, in blue right here, here's where you could download the owner's manual. Here, if we click right here, this is where we can download the computer software. It's the PC software. So this README text is just tells you how to download the software, basically what I'm telling you, but you could look that over. Now here's this right here, this Nivisa. You download and install that first, and what that's going to do is that's going to install a driver if your computer doesn't already have the driver. I kind of think you don't even have to install that. I think the newer computers are going to have all that stuff. And then here's your scope, which is actually, when it comes on your computer, it's going to say touch scope, but that's your scope software right there. So download and install that. So then, if you want to be able to also operate it on your phone, you would go here to apps, okay? And you can just go ahead and aim your camera at there. And when you aim your camera at there, you'll go ahead and download that software. So that's the Android one, that's the iOS. But like I said, you can just scan it with your camera and it'll automatically download that for you. So what we would do next here, after we double click on our icon, let's see if I had a picture of that icon here. Okay, here's the icon that it should have put on your screen. It says Scope Suite TO1000. Okay, so double click on that, and when we do that, then we should come up with this right here which says Touch Scope. Now, on your, what you need to do is turn your computer software on first. So we have Touch Scope running first, and this is only if you have a hard time connecting. This is a procedure I'd try. Okay, so on the scope itself, we're gonna go ahead and we're not connected to it yet. So, but it does. We are connected on the scope. We are, and I'll show you how to where the settings are. But I am hooked up to the Wi-Fi router with the scope itself. Okay, that's why down here on the right, this is showing up, the SATO 1004. Okay, so if I want to connect to it, I would just click on this green link right here, and it turns red. And as you can see, it did not connect that time because our scope is still sitting there. So I'm going to click that again, and I'm going to click it again. Okay, now this is a pretty good example. See how we're not really getting into the scope. We're just we've got the scope program running, and we got these buttons and everything over here, but we're still not connected to the actual scope itself. And it's not letting me connect. Okay, well that was a good example of not being able to connect. Now I did just click on it again and it did connect, but the reason in that situation why it wouldn't connect is because I was connected to my phone through Samsung. It's a Samsung phone, Android phone. That's what I installed it on. And so let's say, I'll just show you that real quick here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close out of the scope. And one reason too, you can tell this is running and there's no lag on it because I can see my signal moving there. And if I go here and I click on this channel 1 and mouse up, holding my left mouse button and hold it over there. At the same time, when I moved all that, I also noticed on the scope that this same flyout was on the scope there. And if I wanted to get rid of that, I just click anywhere here in the black. Okay, and I just wanted to show you this. Now, this is the actual phone right here. This is the phone screen. And I'm getting the phone screen on the computer with using a program called Samsung, or an app called Samsung Dex. Okay, so my phone is wirelessly connected to the oscilloscope tablet, but I got to go wired USB-C to the computer just to be able to show you guys this. Now, I could see using the phone in the wireless mode. I don't know why you'd want to use it on the computer like this. The only reason like I said, use it on the computer is so I can show people how things work. It's real easy. I don't have to basically film the actual oscilloscope itself. I can do a screen capture. So here it is on the phone. Down here in the bottom right, we have the IP address, and that's all you need to do to put that in to connect to it. Not all the buttons are the same. They're similar, but it doesn't work exactly the same, but pretty close. I can go up here and drag down my top menu, click anywhere in the black to get rid of it, drag my trigger over to set my triggers. So it's pretty close. You have your auto button over here, a run stop. So anyway, so you see nothing's moving now, so it is stopped. We can turn it back on so it's running again. So I wanted to show you how it hooked up to the phone. This is exactly how it looks on my phone. I can push all the same buttons on the phone. So kind of interesting. So let's go ahead and turn this off. Okay, so now we're out of Samsung Dex. Let's go ahead and put the oscilloscope back up. Usually starts in full screen. Like I said, I think you should probably size it. It's better if you size your square there before you connect to it, but it probably really doesn't matter. So down here on the bottom we see net, so that would be wireless, or we could click on USB and you could connect to the USB-C on the side of the scope to your computer. Or net would be wireless into your network. You have to, of course, hook it to the network. Wi-Fi. You can also go HDMI to your computer screen. But when you would go HDMI, I'm pretty sure that would make the whole scope screen your HDMI, and you wouldn't be able to use other programs and stuff on your computer. So to me, this is the best way to work like that. Now I'm going to click on this. Now I'm not connected to the scope, but it does see my scope here. Okay, so like I said, usually we want to start the scope software on the computer first, then turn the scope on if you're having some connection problems. And sometimes you just get these little glitches in there, and that's what I showed you, turning that main power switch off on the side of the scope. Then I'll show you another little secret here. Now we connected to the scope. And here's an actual example of the scope, of the scope software not being able to find the actual oscilloscope. Now the oscilloscope is actually connected to Wi-Fi, but no matter how many times we change the settings, or if we actually even type the IP address in there, it'll just close the oscilloscope console. We can click on connect as much as we want. And I've tried changing the Wi-Fi a couple times to, excuse me, different, you know how you got your 5 megahertz and your 2.5 megahertz on your different routers and stuff, and still am not able to even see the oscilloscope down here to make the connection. So what we'll do is we'll have to restart everything. We'll have to restart the computer and restart the oscilloscope and see what that comes up with. Here's an actual example of the scope of the scope software not being able to find the actual oscilloscope. Now the oscilloscope is actually connected to Wi-Fi, but no matter how many times we change the settings, or if we actually even type the IP address in there, it'll just close the oscilloscope console. We can click on connect as much as we want. And I've tried changing the Wi-Fi a couple times to excuse me, different you know how you got your 5 megahertz and your 2.5 megahertz on your different routers and stuff, and still am not able to even see the oscilloscope down here to make the connection. So what we'll do is we'll have to restart everything. We'll have to restart the computer and restart the oscilloscope and see what that comes up with. So after restarting the computer, if you see down here, we do actually see the oscilloscope, and by just clicking right here on the link, I was able to reconnect to the oscilloscope. After turning the computer off, I left the oscilloscope on. I think if you still didn't connect, you could try turning the oscilloscope off and the computer off to make your connection. And a white box does pop up a lot, like, do you want to connect to this? And I was going to ask Micsig why it does that, but I think it just goes ahead and says okay, it's okay to connect. So obviously at this time we did make a connection. Now I actually have 4 signals showing on all 4 channels are on this scope right now. So we got a UART signal coming up here on the top. We got a sine wave signal here, we got a square wave signal, and then we just got a regular DC signal here. And real quick, if you're just starting to learn about these scopes, so we're measuring voltage and we're measuring time. Time is left to right, voltage is up and down. And always remember, because I don't want you to forget that the really neat thing about these scopes is, and I'm going to actually do it on the scope, is the pinch to zoom. See, all I'm doing is pinching in, just like you would on your phone, to zoom, which is pretty darn neat. And you can see my voltage over here on the right. It's changing as I zoom in or zoom out, which is the same thing you could do right here. I mean, you could just go and click here, zoom in, or, you know, raise your voltage, lower your voltage right there. Your time is right here. It's kind of nice if you push right here in the middle, then you don't have to do it by individual. You could actually go here and click wherever you want for your timing. Okay, but what I was really wanting to show you guys is if we click on home, we're going to go to the tablet home screen. Okay, and just real quick, this isn't actually a tutorial on how this stuff works, but if you put your mouse on the right side, hold your left button in, then click again over there. Now you're on that second screen on the home screen. And a lot of people don't know there's even a second screen on there. And there are 3 apps over here, the clock, calendar, and bin to CSV. So if I click back over here on the left, hold my mouse button and drag it to the right, then click one more time on the right side, that sets that main screen. Now, one thing too to remember, see how I have my my control buttons down here? Now these sometimes are hidden. And I'll show you here, let's see, I think it's under display, yeah, auto hide navigation bar. So if this was on, those would disappear. So I generally just leave it off there. Okay, so if I wanted to get back to my main home page, I just push on that circle right there. Okay, so another thing that now you click on these to get to the different apps that are on this tablet, and it's an okay tablet. It's nothing like an Android tablet or an iPad or anything, but it's okay if you really have to use it for a tablet. You can just click here on the browser, watch YouTube. It has a little speaker in it and everything. But what I wanted to show you here, if you do have a freezing tendency of some kind of lag here, what you can do is you can click on here. Now here's where you're gonna, when you first hook the scope up, here's where you go to your network and internet. That's where you're gonna have to join your Wi-Fi on your system. But what I wanted to show you is if we were to go, if we're having that lagging deal, we could go right here and we could go network, we could go system, reset options. And when you click on this reset option right here, erase all factory data, reset. Now, if you have anything you need to save, you might want to save it. But in all actuality, you're kind of going to be using this as an oscilloscope and not a tablet. So if you're having a hard time connecting, or if you're getting a lot of lag and you just can't seem to get it to... I've had these things where they work fine for 3 or 4 days, and then all of a sudden it starts lagging, and no matter what I do, turn this off, it still doesn't take care of that lag. So this is the only way I've been able to fix it so far. And I think the issue is on the tablet of the oscilloscope. I don't think it's a computer. I think you could use even some older computers on this and it'll work just fine. So if we go back to the main screen here of the oscilloscope, and there is some little interesting little apps on here. This one is a deal where you can put in your figures and actually check, you know, your different settings and stuff. It's kind of nice. You might want to research this and see. You just click in that box and then you can set your voltages. It's kind of interesting. So if I want to go back to my main screen, and what I was going to show you also, if we go to files here, now a lot of oscilloscopes, when you buy them, to use like UART or any of the serial bus to be able to read them, you got to pay extra for the licenses for this kind of stuff. Let's see, where was that at? Let's see, files. It was in files. Let's see. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm trying to show you these licenses that this oscilloscope comes with. So it's I thought it was in files, but it's not. It's in app market right here. So you go app market, and there's quite a few little things you can do in here, but right here where it says information, that's where it's going to show you the screen. It tells you what your scope is right here, and it tells you all your licenses that are already installed on the scope. Okay, so if we go back to our main screen again, now this is actually really handy. We can go to the user guide. And they did actually just update the user guide to have a search on it because I forget. I think it's 458 pages long, and we can scroll through this with our mouse by holding our mouse in, or we can go over here and say we type in trigger. Then we hit the magnifying glass there. Looks like it only took one. Let's do that again. Sometimes you had to move it around too to get the magnifying glass to pop back up there. So let's try that again. TRIGGER. Okay. All right, then it starts with the trigger. Now, it finds a lot of them on here, one of 774. So if we click this arrow down here, it's going to go to the next trigger, which is kind of nice. I mean, trigger is something you wouldn't want to search for on here because it's going to be everywhere, obviously, on here. Now, to get back out of here, now see, we can't scroll on this PDF anymore. Even if I push and hold my mouse, I got to hit, what I have to do is I have to hit that X right there, and then I have to close this with this arrow right here, and then I'm back to being able to use the actual hold the mouse to scroll through it. So that's kind of interesting. It's actually nice to have a manual with you though. And if you were having any system upgrade, you would click on this green button right there, and that would show you if you have any system upgrade. So that's pretty much it. The way you would have, if you do have some lag and stuff in there, I would try that reset on the side, that hard switch, you know, the little plastic switch down in there. And then I would try settings. and then I would go system, and then I would go this reset options right here. And like I said, it's if you got any pictures or anything, you're going to want to move them, and you can move them to your computer pretty easy also. So anyways, I hope this helps you know how to use the phone and PC connection of the oscilloscope. And like I said, if you're a manufacturer and want me to feature your products, you can get a hold of me at info@iwatchandlearn.com. And actually, that's iwatchilearn.com. But you can, let me just show you, if you're just getting started with these things, how some of these work up here, because it is kind of hard to tell. But if you left click, hold, and pull down up here on top and pull down, then you're going to get that top menu. And that's pretty much has your triggers, measure, pretty much everything in it. On the bottom here, you do have a hidden memory or menu underneath here. If you pull up on a blank spot, then you do have all this stuff right here, like all measures. It's kind of like a hidden menu there, because see, if we just click in the black, this is all we see here. But if we grab this right here and pull it up, then we have all these, these are our cursors right here. One thing I suggest you do is go up here, pull that menu down, and let's see here. If we go to save, what I would do is I would go ahead and go to settings. I would put a 1. I would take this, go here, and I would put a 1 in. You would take out whatever's, because it's going to say user, yada, yada. I would take all that out. I would just put a 1 there. Then I would hit enter. And then I would save that. That way, when you go into the automotive part of this scope, it sometimes adds a lot of different references, and like over here, this would tell you what test you're doing and stuff like that. And also, when you go to set up your cursors for automotive, this is where you do it right there. Okay, you set in your number of cylinders and then your angles for your however many cylinders you have. So if I push back out of here, now this is, if you go in the automotive, you push right here, and then you could set all your different pre-programmed tests in here for automotive. Now what I was getting at, when you do that and you push that and you get into that system, see how everything changed right here with the ignition and all that kind of stuff? So what I like to do then is I would just go back up to there, and I would go save, settings, and I would go recovery, and now I would be right back to where I was before I started that, or wherever I saved this. I think this is where I actually was when I saved this. Now this is actually reading a UART digital signal right here. I did want to show you how it actually works really good for serial. Another hidden menu over here is if you hold your mouse and scroll, this is where you get to math and your references, and this is our UART, where we're reading it on this channel right here for the UART. So if we pull out on this right here, we can turn off this serial channel there, and so that would be gone. Now another weird thing is if you pull over on that trigger there, now you can set your trigger up to auto, normal, whatever channel you want to trigger on, and rising, falling, both. So, and then what a lot of people don't realize too is to actually set a trigger. Now I just hit auto and I set that trigger for this. This is that digital signal. But if I click and hold my mouse there, I can move that trigger off that signal and see how it's rolling now. So if I want to move that trigger back up there, I can just do that. So there's this little scope is actually quite capable. I will do more in-depth reviews on it and show you the different things you can do with it. But if you're trying to read like the UART from an Uno or something like that, like I said, all I did is I went over here, hold my left mouse button in and pull that up, go ahead and turn on one of these serial channels right here, and that's reading that. I think that one just says hello world on it. But if I triggered it auto again, it'll set it up easier for me. Or I could do this on time base here. You know, as you zoom in on your time, it's going to show, like, say for instance, another in the hidden menu down here, we can go to text down here. And that's right now, that's showing us what the ASCII text on there shows us. So to turn that off, I would have to go back there and click on that again. Now, if I go here, I can change, let's see, where was that at? Some of these things I do forget because all these scopes kind of look alike, but they're all kind of different. So here, if we're reading in hex, see how we just have the 2 numbers? And then, of course, binary is going to be way longer. See, and we're not able to read the binary because we would need to come up with a, you know, make that time frame bigger there. Now we can read that binary signal. And if we go back to ASCII, which is, you know, same thing, kind of like a logic analyzer would be looking at, and we go back to that ASCII signal, and then we see the hello world. So, and I really would like you guys to get involved and learn about your math. The math is really where these oscilloscopes can teach you a lot, and you can actually do a lot of functions with the math part of them. But now, if I were to turn this off, all I would do is left click and hold, drag it over to the left, and then I can turn this serial channel off there. And now I'm just, like I said, I'm back to my regular channels there. Now this is left on here because I must have math on still. Let's see. Yep, math is still on. That's why it's showing this there. So if we click on math, that would be gone. If I wanted to turn on my other signals, because right now there's 4 signals going to this oscilloscope, turn them on there. And of course, those other ones are not triggering in the right places because they're different frequencies. Now, if I wanted to trigger on channel 2, I would pull this over here and I would go trigger. Now, I can do it automatically, or I could move the trigger to the channel itself. So, see how it slowed down, and now see how this is rolling. This signal is rolling up here again. So, I hit the auto to trigger on there. You don't have to. Now, this signal, I did want to show you guys too. You can just put your finger right on the screen and move these signals around. You can pinch and zoom. Don't forget to take capabilities of that touch screen. That's actually super nice. Now I have to move it, you know, with the mouse on the computer here. But so I got kind of 4 examples of signals on here. This is a data signal up here, so that'll be read on signal or serial. That's the one where we're seeing the hello world from the Uno. You got to get your kids involved and stuff like that because you can buy cheap oscilloscopes now, and if you can just get instilled in one of your kids how all this stuff works, where you can control, you know, you can connect to computer chips, see what those chips are doing. If you get locked out of something, sometimes you can go in and actually change the code where the system will work again. Electronics are pretty amazing, and if you get a young person involved in it, who knows where they could go with it. But we have 4 different signals here. We have a, you know, it looks like a square wave, but it's a data signal. This is a sine wave signal. This is a square wave signal, the pink or purple one down here. And then down here, this is something that a lot of people don't understand. And this is a DC signal. Okay, so like your car battery or direct current signal. It doesn't do anything. No matter what you change on your settings, you're never going to get it to look like a square signal or a data signal or a sine wave signal. You're never going to do that. All it's ever going to do, but the beauty of the DC signal is when we hook that up to our amp draw, and you go ahead and turn your starter over and be careful too that you don't have you don't want to fill your cylinders up with gasoline and stuff because you will liquid lock them. You need to figure out a way to turn off your fuel system so you don't get a lot of fuel into the system. But as you crank that starter over, you can actually sit here and watch this DC signal and see, what kind of compression. You can do a relative compression test on an engine. which is pretty neat. You don't even have to do the regular pressure test where you take the spark plug out. Now, one thing I will say about these tablet oscilloscopes is they are ground isolated to a point. Whereas if you don't have the charger plugged in and you don't also have a USB. Now most USB little chargers and stuff, but see, the thing is, if you have it hooked up USB-C to the side of there, if you're hooking to your computer with the USB-C signal to the computer to view it on the screen like I'm doing right here, if you're not doing it wirelessly through your Wi-Fi, you can actually be grounding the system. And I do think you should spend some time in looking what it actually means to isolate your mains ground and your ground on the oscilloscope. And like I said, when you just carry this out to your car, you're going to be fine, because you don't, even if you hook up to your ground on the car, you're not grounded with a cord or anything to the oscilloscope. But make sure and just there's a lot of channels that have in-depth how-tos and stuff about mains ground on your oscilloscope. So I think we've this has gone on long enough, and I will do other videos to show you how to use the menus better on the Micsig scope. But I've ran through them pretty well. Up on the top, I do want to show you too that this just tells us what configuration our trigger's in. We're triggering on channel 2. We're triggering on a rising trigger, and we have this in the automatic mode. So if I pull this out here, it tells us the same thing. Here's our rising, and if we change that to falling, see how that little deal right there changed? This tells us how much memory we're using. Then also, if you want to put your measurements on here, I'll just do this real quick. So we're clicked on channel 1. I can put peak on here. I can put frequency on here. If I go down here on the bottom, you can see where channel 1, I now have peak to peak showing and frequency showing. If I click on channel 2, I can do the same thing. I can start peak and frequency on both those channels. Now, when I click anywhere in the back, it makes the menu disappear. Also, if you just want to set a common, let's see how they put it on this one. It'd be a counter right here, and you could just click on channel 1. And when we get out of here, it's just going to show a frequency up here. And the reason it's not showing the hertz or the frequency up here is because we'd have to zoom out on that a little farther. So let's see here. If we zoom out, oops, going the wrong way. Oh, we're not triggered on 1 anymore. Let's go back to put our trigger on 1. Hit our auto here. Okay, I'm sorry. We would need to trigger that on channel 2 to show frequency. 1 is not going to, here it is right up here. I can move 1 out of here. 1's not going to show a frequency because we have that as a serial channel. And another thing too is you're probably going to be a little concerned of with your probes, and you set them up. Like if we pull over on this channel, so left click and hold, and then pull over on the channel. See, I have no lag, so I know everything's working just fine. This is where you can turn the channel on and off. You can connect with a BNC banana connection. This is your probe that comes with it. And this is where you can put it for your 10 times or 1 time. So pretty simple. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate. Thanks for watching the video.